Romans chapter 13, verse 1. Let every one submit to the governing authorities, since there is no authority except from God, and the authorities that exist are instituted by God. So then the one who resists the authority is opposing God's command, and those who oppose it will bring judgment on themselves. For rulers are not a terror to good conduct, but to bad conduct. Do you want to be afraid of the authority? Do what is good, and you will have its approval. I'm Joe Shrew, and you're watching The Cross Reference. We've officially been divided. States are picking sides, sending aid for partisan goals to be achieved, banning travel to other states that don't hold the same political views as the other side of the aisle. We got law and order versus dismantling our police force, sexual preference versus divine order, racism increasing under the guise of anti-racist rhetoric, etc., ad infinitum. Make no mistake, we are being divided, and it's by design. There are the elite working to dominate and influence. Our musical artists, filmmakers, athletes, celebrities are pushing their agendas. Mainstream media is spewing propaganda and lying rhetorics. Big tech is turning the rudders of this ship by censoring any speech that goes against the goal of taking over this country, and those in government seats gain more and more power with each passing day. All at the cost of our God-given rights. God-given, not the government. You know, the thing. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They want these rights revised, if you will. The freedom of speech, the freedom of the press, the freedom to peacefully assemble, unless it falls within their goals, they'll leave that one alone. And God forbid they want to revise our freedom of religion. This new system of authority in our land today works in unison to reverse generic morality in the hearts and minds of Americans. Morals that we've known to be true for centuries now, being skewed, perverted, and in some cases just flat out erased. Like grown men exposing themselves to underage girls. I'm sure you guys all saw this a couple of weeks ago, but let's take another look, shall we? And if you have little ones in the room, if you have little children in the room, you may want to send them out of the room for the next 10 or 15 minutes because viewer discretion is advised.
We spot, so it's okay. I just want to be clear with you. It's okay for a man to go into the women's section, show his penis around the other women, young little girls underage. Your spa, we spa, condone that. Is that what you're saying? Like I asked. It's so he can stay there. He can stay there. What sexual or
Now, I stopped it there. You guys can go back and watch the full video if you want. If you haven't already, I'm sure you have seen this in one form or another on the news or on YouTube or whatever. I didn't want to play it all because, first of all, I don't like playing stuff with language, and I don't like playing graphic stuff. This is a Christian-based podcast, but this world around us is crazy, and sometimes in order to cover the recent events around us, sometimes that disclaimer is going to have to come up. So I didn't want to play it all, but the gentleman behind the counter of this spa, which is the man behind the counter was going into something about his sexual orientation. The woman says, "What sexual orientation?" He has a blank. So this man goes into an all-woman section where they are all nude in the spa, and this man comes in and just exposes himself and his genitals to these women, and not just women, but underage girls that are in there with their mothers, having a spa day with their mothers, only to be interrupted by the man walking in, exposing himself to the women and young children. And this man here is trying to defend him, and there's another man that comes up and I guess tries to defend this man right here, but that's neither here nor there. He's just another woke, indoctrinated individual who was, I guess, trying to defend the policies of this degenerate spa, who is okay with the goings on here. But anyways, I'm sure you guys all heard this story, but I bet what you haven't heard is what the mainstream media has not shown anybody. And it's a bunch of Christians that got together and they protested on July 3rd outside of the spa. And once again, viewer discretion is advised. There's some language, there's some graphic violence in it, but we need to take a look at it. And, well, here it is.
Only Jesus to heaven.
Get the fuck out.
You're gonna get hit. Oh man, see, they're gonna beat. Yo! No, you guys. Okay, just let him go. Just let him go. Just let him go. Just come on.
Get up and go. I am. So get up and go. I am. Hey, get up and go. Get up and go. Get the fuck out. Get out of here, buddy. You don't belong here. Get out of here. Yellow! Stick together! Yellow! Jesus loves trans people, okay? What the fuck you gonna do? Are you pushing women, you fucking coward? No! Don't fucking touch me! Come on! Come on, motherfucker! don't touch him, bro. You man, fuck you for protecting this piece of shit. What's up?
Yeah. Yeah. If you're feeling anything like I was feeling and like I'm feeling now, the first time I watched this video, it absolutely broke my heart, brought tears to my eyes, and angered me deep within my soul. Obviously, you can tell that Antifa caught word of this and what was going on about the protest outside the Wi Spa, about the man who exposed his genitals to underage girls. So they're peacefully protesting, not like what we saw last summer and this year, where peaceful protests consist of burning down police buildings and other black businesses or any other businesses indiscriminately, beating people senseless, and cops, looting, rioting. No, this was a peaceful protest. And Antifa caught wind of it and had to make sure that they made it not so peaceful. Or more peaceful, depending on which mainstream news outlet you watch these days. But they showed up. And you can see how they move. They've gotten a lot better at what they do. This is a militant group. You hear them shouting orders like fall back, hold. And if you watch the video in its entirety, the video is actually about 12 minutes long. It's a compilation of everything that happened that day from different camera angles. If you watch the video in its entirety, Antifa even splits up. They split groups up into factions, and they call them by color: red, black, green, in order to deliver commands more easily. They're moving like a military group, and they come across these Christians who are peacefully protesting, and they beat them senseless. And I don't know if you saw in the video, the cops were just about half a block away, and they did absolutely nothing. In fact, one of them just stood there and continued to guide traffic. And they can't do anything. The local governments, Los Angeles, California, has defunded their police and told them to stand back. So, knowing that, a bunch of what I like to call patriots, or I'm starting to coin a new phrase called anti-Antifa, showed up on the scene. Because the cops aren't going to do anything. The cops aren't going to do anything. So we have a bunch of patriots who showed up, and this is what ensued. And it almost looks like, from watching the video in its entirety, that the police, they're nearby, they're there. But they just let this play out. Because, like I said, their hands have been tied by Los Angeles's local government. And I started this episode by reading Romans chapter 13 for you, verses 1 through 3, I think. And why did I read that? Because that is the mandate. To submit yourselves to the governing authorities, for they are ordained of God. They are put in place by God. Is what these people doing wrong by defending these Christians who were protesting peacefully? Sorry, I'm a little worked up. Was what they were doing wrong? Well, we are to obey the governing authorities. Unless the governing authorities command you do something that God has forbidden, or forbid you to do something God has commanded. And in this case, California has made it legal to where now grown men can expose themselves to underage girls. That is wrong. And this peaceful protest turned violent because Antifa decided to be the road warriors, and then Patriots showed up to defend them, to defend those protesters. It's all throughout the Bible. When men of God had to defy the government in order to obey God. And it's no different from what you're seeing here. I mean, we all know the story of, in Daniel chapter 3, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, right? Where King Nebuchadnezzar erected a gold statue and commanded that everybody in his empire bow down and worship it when it's unveiled. When all the band starts playing their majestic instruments and everything, everybody hit the ground on their knees, their heads to the ground, and worship the image. Except 3 people. A sea of people on their knees with their face to the ground, worshiping a fake, a false god, an idol, an image. A sea of people on their faces, except for 3, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Because they're not going to worship anybody other than God Almighty himself. We can go to Daniel chapter 6, which I'm in now. Daniel had worked himself up through the ranks of Babylon while in captivity, from when God had to punish Israel because of their rampant sin and their unrepented sin. They were taken into captivity by a pagan nation known as Babylon. But God had blessed Daniel to work his way up through the governmental ranks. And it came to the point, well, let's just go here real quick, shall we? In Daniel chapter 6. Let's see here. Darius decided to appoint 100 satraps over the kingdom, stationed through the realm, and over them 3 governors, including Daniel. So you have all these government officials, 120 of them, and then in charge of those government officials are 3 governors, and Daniel was one of them. And it says Daniel distinguished himself above the administrators, above the governors and the satraps, because he had an extraordinary spirit. So the king planned to set him over the whole realm. Well, that made all the other government officials jealous. So what they do? So the administrators and satraps went together to the king and said to him, "May King Darius live forever." All the administrators of the kingdom and the prefects and satraps, advisors and governors have agreed that the king should establish an ordinance and enforce an edict that for 30 days anyone who petitions any god or man except you, the king, will be thrown into the lion's den. Therefore, your majesty, establish the edict and sign the document so that as a law of the Medes and Persians, it is irrevocable and cannot be changed. So King Darius signed the written edict. They're jealous of Daniel. They want him killed by the government because they know Daniel's a man of God. They know he's not going to listen to this. They know he's going to break this law. And they want him gone. They want him gone. When Daniel learned that the document had been signed, he went into his house. The windows in its upstairs room opened towards Jerusalem, and 3 times a day he got down on his knees, prayed, and gave thanks to his God, just as he had done before. And we all know the rest of the story. The king, the officials were spying on him, just waiting for him to screw up, and then they went and ratted him out to the king, and the king had to enforce his law. So they threw him in the lion's den, but because of Daniel's faithfulness to Yahweh, to the one and only true God, God shut the mouths of the lions. Like I said, the Bible's full of examples of when saints had to go against the government authorities to obey God. If we go to Acts chapter 4, verses 17 through 21, we have another perfect example. And this is the disciples, right? This is the disciples, but this is the Sadducees and the Pharisees speaking right here. So that this does not spread any further among the people, let's threaten them against speaking to anyone in this name again. So they called for them and ordered them to not speak or teach at all in the name of Jesus. Peter and John answered them, "Whether it's right in the sight of God for us to listen to you rather than God, you decide. For we are unable to stop speaking about what we have seen and heard." After threatening them further, they released them. Basically, you think you get to decide whether we obey you or God? We're going to obey God. So back to my point. So what do we say? What do we say about this? You have a government in California that has written laws to just influence people to express their degeneracy. And this man in the spa goes and exposes himself to young children, and a protest of Christian protest ensues outside. A peaceful one at that. Antifa shows up, beats and pummels them, and defenders and patriots and anti-Antifa show up to defend them. I don't think they did anything wrong at all, because, like I said, California's government is all about the degeneracy of homosexuality and everything that comes with it.
A number of years back, my office is adding 5 new states to California's state-funded travel restriction list, bringing the total, very sadly, actually this is a large number, to 17. So we're adding 5 new states today. The states are a part of a recent dangerous wave of discriminatory new bills signed into law in states all across the country. California is adding the following 5 states to our restrictions list: Arkansas, Florida, Montana, North Dakota, and West Virginia. Of those states, most are being added in part because they are working to prevent transgender women and girls from participating in school sports consistent with their gender identity.
Oh, man. The majority of the general public doesn't seem to buy all this racism rhetoric coming from the radical left, nor are we buying into the sexualization of children. But that's not going to stop them. If they can't get to us, meaning the adult population, then they will get to our children. Critical race theory, activism, curriculums, sexual indoctrination, as early as kindergarten in some cases. Schools supplied condoms for 5th and 6th graders in intermediate schools across the board for Chicago independent school districts. Tax-funded abortions and the desecration of dead fetal tissues and dead baby parts for medical research. And since we stand against these things, then the problem must obviously be with the country as a whole and the flag for which it stands. We're starting to see in our country a complete hatred for the American flag. This is Mara Gay. She's an MSNBC contributor. And this is what she had to say about the American flag.
On Long Island this weekend, visiting a really dear friend, and I was really disturbed. I saw, dozens and dozens of pickup trucks with, explicatives against Joe Biden on the back of them, Trump flags, and some cases just dozens of American flags, which is also just disturbing because essentially the message was clear. It was, this is my country. This is not your country.
Did you catch that? The flag is disturbing. See, this is scary. I mean, think about it. If we start to see a country that doesn't that doesn't agree with the flag as a more majority, as a general population who doesn't like to identify with the flag of its own country. I mean, we've all seen Kaepernick taking a knee for the flag. We've seen the Olympic hammer thrower, like that's of any importance, turning her back on the flag during the anthem. We've all seen that, but we're starting to see a rampant growth of influence for others to hate the flag through a lot of our higher ups. Excuse me. BLM, the Utah chapter, posted this on the 4th of July, posted this. And it says, and it reads, when we black Americans see this flag, we know the person flying it is not safe to be around. When we see this flag, we know the person flying it is a racist. When we see this flag, we know the person flying it lives in a different America than we do. When we see this flag, we question your intelligence. We know to avoid you. It's a symbol of hatred. It said, we live in different Americas. Boy, I tell you what, I feel that a lot lately too. Like I said, this country is being divided in half. Make no guff about it. We are in the middle of a cold civil war right now. We are in the middle of a cold civil war. And we're being separated to the point to where, I mean, how long is it going to be until the left makes their own flag? And they say, no, you can have that flag. This is our flag. It doesn't work like that. That only creates more and more conflict. But hey, let's be honest. I think that's what they want. I mean, at this point, how can we say anything else than they obviously want this to happen. They obviously want this to happen. And we are, like I said, they want to get to the children. The critical race theory. I've seen activist classes, like, you know, encouraging activism for the wrong reasons. And this is a perfect example. This was on Twitter the other day, and I don't really want to go to Twitter to show you it from its original post, because I hate Twitter. I hate the cesspool that's Twitter. Every time I get on it, I just end up mad. I end up closing my phone mad. And so I'm going to go to Blaze Media for this one. And this says, sickening. Viral video shows boy ripping American flag from yard, flinging it to the ground as mom watches. And I'm going to go down here. No need to read the article. The video speaks 1,000 words. Here comes mom riding up on her bike and her son on her scooter. And there we go. She's just sitting there watching, and they ride off. I mean, this is the article is absolutely right. The headline is absolutely right. This is sickening. What's worse is the mother is fine with it. The mother is absolutely fine with this, and they just ride off into the sunset knowing that, hey, we've been able to desecrate yet another flag because it stands for hatred and racism and everything that's wrong with this country. Oh, give me a break. Quit buying the rhetoric. Quit buying the propaganda. But let's go ahead and look at let's look at some of the comments. On one side, you got this is sickening. What a horrible mother. It breaks my cold little heart to see such a young child doing this. What is going on in that home if the mother can egg this on? Another person tweeted, a nation will not survive when society teaches its children to hate it. Amen to that. Another comment wrote, honest question, how can a country succeed if their citizens are being raised to hate it? My heart broke watching this. Lord, help us all. Train up your child in the way they should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Proverbs 22:6. But on the other side of the aisle, you've got this kid rocks. Fantastic parenting. Best mom I've ever seen. The proper way to raise your child. Way to go, Mom. Exemplary parenting skills. That kid's going places. You'll love to see it. I love how this mom just let him do what he had to do. And if this ain't the worst, if my kid doesn't desecrate at least 5 flags by the time they are 10, I will disown them. Lovely. Just lovely. And I did a quick Google search. I say Google. I don't use Google. I did a quick DuckDuckGo search, and I just searched new American flag. That's all I searched. Go ahead, try it. I encourage you to do the same for experimental purposes. And this is what I came up with. Over and over, I found article or web page after web page calling for either a petition of a new flag or talking about how we need a new flag, or just article after article. A call for a new flag. So this is where we are right now. We're on the verge of splitting this country in half to the fact that now we're about to make two different flags. And this is not a good idea. Need I remind you the two flags that were made in this country last? The last time two different flags were made to represent this country was called the Civil War. And one of them was the god-awful rebel flag that the Democrats came up with to fight the Union in order to uphold slavery. I hate that flag. I can't stand that flag. That rebel flag, the Confederate flag, annoys me. But you still got some people who fly and say, well, it just represents the South. No, it doesn't. It represents the Democrats fighting the Republicans in order to try and keep their slaves. That's what it represents. Let's get real. But thank God the Republicans won the war and slavery was abolished. Thank God for that. Oh man, sorry I'm getting worked up, but I sometimes I can't help myself, guys. Forgive me. Be patient with me. So what is this? What are we seeing here? We are seeing a country infiltrated by a foreign ideology that seeks to change the basic moralities of this country and slowly but surely eliminate mine and your freedoms to control what you see, what you read, believe, and do, all to the benefit of the governmental powers that be. And if we don't fall in line like good little boys and girls, we reap the consequences. We're seeing individual freedoms done away with. Most importantly, the First Amendment. The rise of communism in our country is as prevalent as it's ever been. Communist alliances are working in unison to infiltrate this country, and they're succeeding. I'd say more, but if I elaborated, then YouTube would flag this video, give me a very authoritarian strike, and remove this video. Like I said, we're losing our freedom of speech. Last May, we saw those in our own House of Representatives. In our own House of Representatives side against Israel, our allies, God's covenant people, after the terrorist group Hamas indiscriminately fired over 3,500 rockets into Israel in a span of just a few days. So Israel responded by firing rockets back on key Hamas targets to hinder the terrorist group's goal of wiping Israel off the map. They even gave civilians warnings of when and where they were firing these rockets, in order to prevent any civilian casualties. But still, the call for defunding aid to Israel's military supplies was shouted from the rooftops from certain congressmen and women. And I'm sure we all know who. It's not hard to figure that part out. This is from, let's see here. This is from Middle East Eye. And this is from, well, I'm going to find it for you. I'm telling you, I'm going to find it. Excuse me for my technical difficulties here. Seems like I have one every time. Israel, Palestine. U.S. lawmakers speak up for Palestinian rights in Congress. Several U.S. Congress members spoke in support of Palestinian rights on the floor of the House of Representatives on Thursday, calling on President Joe Biden's administration to pursue a more even-handed approach to Israel and Palestine. Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib slammed Biden's handling of the crisis in the Palestinian territories in Israel, urging U.S. politicians to recognize Palestinians' humanity. Dude, I don't mean to sound like a child here, but they started it. They indiscriminately started firing rocket after rocket, and over a span of just like 4 days, over 3,500 rockets were fired into Israel. So Israel responded. What do you expect them to do? So they started taking out key targets, not just firing rains of rockets down like Hamas did, but actually strategically performing military maneuvers in order to take care of their threat. But here we are. We gotta get all in an uproar and go against our allies, God's covenant people, and throw a big hissy fit, because that's where we are today. All of our moralities have been flipped, and I'll be darned if they aren't going to try and make sure that you flip with them. And unfortunately, a lot of sheeple are doing the same. Of course, BLM had to weigh in on this. BLM feels the exact same way. Here we go. This is from the New York Post. And let's see here. Black Lives Matter's obscene support for Hamas terrorism. For an outfit that claims to prioritize racial equality, Black Lives Matter is confoundingly proud to be anti-Israel. The official Twitter account of the main BLM organization this week tweeted its support for the Hamas terrorists relentlessly seeking to slaughter Israeli civilians. Yeah, and then protests. Then protests erupted for a short amount of time in major democratic cities. Here we are. They have fallen for the bait. If our beloved congressmen and women say so, then we obviously have to fall in line. And people in our country are now in support of terrorists. I'll say it again. Major groups of people in our country are now in support of terrorists. They're in support of men exposing their genitals to women, to underage girls. They're in support of desecrating the flag whenever they see it, or disrespecting it, turning their backs on it, taking a knee. That very flag that stands for the freedom for you to have your freedom of speech. It's ironic, isn't it? I support your right to say the nastiest things about me. That is your right. You may not like the consequences, but that is your right, and I support your right to do so. The men and women who died for the freedoms that you enjoy would support your right to do that as well. That's why they fought and bled and died for those rights. So you should at least respect the flag, because the flag represents the freedom that you have to disrespect that flag. So in turn, respect the flag. But no, we want to create new flags. And now we want to support terrorists. Do you see where I'm going? There is a major divide in this country. We have been infiltrated by communist regimes. And communism is spreading through this country, and it's only going to lead to the worst possible outcomes. We will lose our freedoms. The Constitution, throw it out the window if we don't wake up. The woke claim to be woke, but we need to wake up more or something. I don't know what else to say. And speaking of what's going on in our country, let's take a look what's going on the other side. Going on the other side of the world. We have alliances, communist regime alliances happening as we speak. This right here is from Newsweek. And the headline reads, China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran build ties as UN friends feud with the U.S. China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran. China, communist country. Russia, communist country. North Korea, communist country. Iran, an oppressive, terrorist, developing theocracy of Satan. I'll say it, of Satan. Might as well just be communism. China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran have set out to build on their strategic partnerships as they pull efforts to counter what they see as an increasingly aggressive United States attempting to thwart their interests. Well, that's just lovely. And speaking of Russia, this is how communist countries eventually end up. In order to squash any idea of revolting, any extreme behavior, you will have to inevitably do away with any dominating religion or belief. Because for there to be a superior morality, a superior divine command or order or way of life that supersedes what the government says is the way of life, it has to be abolished. It's extreme. It's extremism. So it has to be done away with. Back in 2016, Russia did just this. Some oppressive laws issued on the Christian church. This is from the Christian Post. And this is back in July 21st, 2016, almost 1 year or almost 5 years from the day. Christians in Russia under attack from Putin's law banning evangelism outside of churches. Russia's so-called anti-extremism, see, it's extremist, gotta squash it. Russia's so-called anti-extremism law that restricts evangelism and missionary activities went into effect on Wednesday, and religious freedom advocacy groups say they are starting to assess the impact it will have on Christians in the country. It restricts evangelism and missionary activities outside the walls of the church. This is where communism leads. And like I said, I'm worried about our First Amendment, and God forbid losing our freedom of religion. If this country keeps going the way it's going, we're headed down a dark satanic path. On another note, have we seen what's been going on in Canada? So apparently, at a bunch of public, traditionally and historically Catholic public schools, they've began to discover and unearth unmarked graves of Indigenous children. Now, I'm not advocating for the sins of the church in its past or its present at all, but they're finding these Indigenous children in unmarked graves from probably 100 years ago. And, well, we're starting to see churches burn. Why we can't learn from our past instead of reacting to our mistakes? Why don't we learn from our mistakes instead of acting out in anger from our past? Let's take a look at this story right here.
Red paint remains on the doors of Calgary's Grace Presbyterian Church. Its pastor says the church is still not sure how best to respond.
We're even thinking about maybe leaving the paint up for a while, just as a way of not trying to cover this up, but recognizing that we have a place in this story.
Churches across the country have been targeted in a series of vandalism or arson attacks in recent weeks, following the discovery of unmarked graves near residential schools operated by the Catholic Church. On Twitter Thursday, Alberta's premier said the vandalism of churches across Alberta is appalling. This is where hatred based on collective guilt for historic injustices leads us. Let's seek unity, respect, and reconciliation instead. The Prime Minister calls the attacks unacceptable and wrong.
We shouldn't be lashing out at buildings that can provide solace to some of our fellow citizens, but we should be every day committing ourselves, each and every one of us, to the hard work we need to do.
Siksika First Nation Chief Ure Crowfoot says he does not condone any destruction of property, but he also understands people are in pain.
There's a lot of emotions going a lot of ways. There's a lot of people that don't know how to feel. Now that these children are literally coming out of the ground, so is the emotional baggage that the survivors put away.
On the Siksika First Nation, RCMP are investigating a series of suspected arsons as well, 2 involving churches and a 3rd involving a series of grass fires believed to be deliberately set on Canada Day. The chief says the land damaged was culturally significant, often used in ceremony. And while it's not clear if those fires have any connection to the recent church attacks, it continues to be an emotionally charged time. Heather Urex West, Global News, Calgary.
And as of July 5th, 10 churches have been severely burnt or burnt to the ground or vandalized extremely. And that was just as of July 5th. Now, like I said, I am not advocating for the past sins of the church or anybody or any organization for that matter. But when such sins are discovered, and they no longer exist, mind you, but once such sins are discovered, yes, it's heartbreaking. Yes, it's heartbreaking. But let's not act out of anger for sins in the past that have been. Let's learn from them. It's like we saw all last year with the riots in America, in the States, where we're tearing down these statues for one reason or another as cancel culture takes hold, and we're canceling everything. Those are reminders of our shortcomings. And half of them there was no justification for taking half of them down anyways. But the ones that are standing, that were standing, yes, people have faults. Yes, those faults have been corrected in our history. We learn from our past mistakes. We don't act and lash out from stuff that happened 100 years ago, 200 years ago, and act like fools. We've come a long way as society, and that should be something that should be celebrated. That should be something that should be celebrated. And I see a rise of, I'm worried. I see a rise of communism in this country and abroad. And it will only lead to losing every right we have. And one of the most important ones to me is my right to worship my God as I see fit and according to Scripture. I would hate to lose that. I woke up this weekend preparing for this episode. I woke up early, specifically to come into the studio, and I sat down on the floor. I opened up the Word of God, and I went into prayer. I just wanted to pray before everybody woke up. Didn't really know exactly what I was going to pray, but I found myself thanking God that I am so blessed to live in a free country, to where I don't have to look over my back. I don't have to look over my back when I go to church. I can freely go to church without fear of retaliation on my family or my home being burnt down. I have, underneath this table on this shelf, I probably have 10 different translations of the Bible. When people across the world would give their right arm for one Bible. I am so blessed to live in a country as free as this. To worship Yeshua without fear of repercussion for my beliefs. And I'm worried that this country is headed down a dark, dark path. And I pray for this country. We should all be praying for this country. People around the world are not near as blessed as we are. But yet we're told this country is horrible. No, I beg to differ. I beg to differ. There's countries all across the world. Here's a list of 52 of them right here that where it is incredibly hard to be a Christian. This is from lovepackages.org. And these guys deliver Bibles to places where it's really hard to get your hands on a Bible, or it's absolutely illegal to have a Bible. Let's see here. Is the Bible illegal in 52 countries? You may have heard that the Bible is illegal in 52 countries. It gets printed on t-shirts and stitched on Bible covers. Illegal may not be strictly true, but it might as well be in most of these places. The Voice of the Martyrs map categorizes countries where Bibles are 1, difficult or dangerous to obtain, 2, illegal or highly restricted, and 3, strictly illegal and only available through covert smuggling. And here's a shot of, the map. Here's a list of the countries. There's Iran. There's China. Wait a minute. There's North Korea. 3 of the 4 that are making alliances abroad. All these countries where it is hard, incredibly hard to be a Christian. That makes me think of Matthew. Let's see if I can find it real quick. I'm sorry, guys. I thought I had it all taken care of here. That makes me think of Matthew chapter 10, starting in verse 22. It says, "You will be hated by everyone because of my name." This is Jesus speaking. "You will be hated by everyone because of my name. But the one who endures till the end will be saved. And when they persecute you in one town, flee to another. A disciple is not above his teacher, or a slave above his master. It is enough for a disciple to become like his teacher, and a slave like his master. If they called the head of the house Beelzebub, how much more the members of the household? Therefore, don't be afraid of them. Since there is nothing covered that won't be uncovered, and nothing hidden that won't be made known. What I tell you in the dark, speak it in the light. What you hear in a whisper, proclaim from the housetops. Don't fear those who kill the body, but are not able to kill the soul, but rather fear him who is able to destroy both soul and body in hell. Aren't 2 sparrows sold for a penny? Yet not one of them falls to the ground without your Father's consent. But even the hairs on your head have all been counted. So don't be afraid. You are worth more than many sparrows. Therefore, everyone who acknowledges me before others, I will also acknowledge him before my Father in heaven. But moreover, whoever denies me before others, I will also deny him before my Father in heaven. Don't assume I've come to bring peace on the earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I came to turn a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law, and a man's enemy will be the members of his household. If we're not careful, we'll live that out. And I will not deny my God. And that's what lays heavy on my heart. That's what lays heavy on my heart. Because I love this country, especially for that First Amendment. For the freedom of speech, the freedom of the press, the freedom to peacefully assemble, and above all, the freedom of religion. I love this country, but if it all goes downhill, I will never deny my Savior. and neither will these people.
In the world today, 1 in 8 Christians are discriminated against, oppressed, even attacked, just because they follow Jesus. They are desperate voices crying out in a dry land.
When I became a Christian, my village turned against me. I no longer belong.
In China, the government installed facial recognition cameras in our sanctuary. That camera can gather the private data of our church members. They will intimidate them, they will prevent them from going to church.
Suna kone churches, suna ibe kayan mutane, suna kashe mutane. That means ana kashe Krista wani lokaci. So ina gani domin Kristanci ni nake gani.
We know from this year's World Watch List that 340 million Christians live in places around the world where they are discriminated against or persecuted because of their faith in Jesus. That number is hard to imagine, hard to get your mind around, but we know that God is faithful. In the book of Isaiah, God tells his people, I will make new ways in the wilderness and rivers in the desert.
In midst of persecution, churches are growing more. Through the persecution, God is making the church grow.
We are so united together like never before. We have a revival in our church, even in the severe persecution.
Saboda haka wannan ma ban za mu addu'a cewa ba, sai dai mu yi addu'a cewa Ubangiji Allah ya ba mu karfafawa wanda za mu jimre.
God has sent a river into the wilderness, and his people are resilient. Like the Joshua tree, they're living boldly in the desert, and they depend upon the church, the roots of his family, for water and support.
They are so encouraged by Christians from America. Pray for them, really care for them. It's like a body of Christ.
When you read the 2021 World Watch List and let it touch your heart, when you commit to pray for your brothers and sisters who are persecuted around the world for their faith, you're helping God make rivers in the desert and helping his children to stand strong for him.
The prayer is the core. When you don't know anything, just pray. When you don't understand anything, pray. You will understand.
Open Doors has been called into this work to strengthen God's people in the desert and to help them overcome the odds. Will you join us?
Paul writes Timothy in 2 Timothy chapter 3. Sorry, I'm a little emotional. Paul says, "What persecutions I have endured, and yet the Lord rescued me from all of them. In fact, all who want to live a godly life in Christ Jesus will be persecuted. Evil people and impostors will become worse, deceiving and being deceived. But as for you, continue in what you have learned and firmly believed." We need to be praying for our brothers and sisters across the world who don't enjoy the freedoms that we have. And we need to be praying for our country and our leaders so that we continue to have the freedom to worship our God, Yahweh, and his precious Son, Yeshua, without fear of being persecuted. But every true Christian, every true child of God will never denounce their Savior that they have in Jesus. And I just hope it doesn't come to that for us here in America. I've read this scripture before and I'm going to read it again. 1 Timothy chapter 2, verses 1 through 4. It says, "First of all, I urge that petitions, prayers, intercessions, and thanksgivings be made for everyone, for kings and all those who are in authority, so that we may lead a tranquil and quiet life in all godliness and dignity. This is good, and it pleases God our Savior, who wants everyone to be saved and to come to the knowledge of the truth. Christian, don't give up prayer. Pray for this country. Pray for your brothers and sisters in other countries who don't enjoy the freedoms we have. Stay discerning. Stay strong. Stay vigilant. And whatever you do, whether you eat or drink, do it all to the glory of our great and almighty God. Love you guys. Stay blessed. I'm out.
Ha ha ha!